is the Marketing Oxford Sandwich course. Today we're going to speak to Ismail Mulla, who's a business reporter on the Yorkshire Post. This is an opportunity for people to find out a little bit about Ismail, about what he does on the Yorkshire Post. I think we've got quite a few questions, quite a few people who are used to doing a bit of PR, some who are completely new to it. So I think, Ismail, what we'll do is we'll just jump in. If anyone's got any questions, if you just want to put them into the comment section, send us a message in the chats and we'll kind of get to them. We'll hopefully have a bit of a Q&A session at the end. And yeah. Okay, so Ismail, you want to tell us just a little bit about you and how you came to be in Yorkshire on the Yorkshire Post?
Oh, well, I'm Yorkshire born and bred, so I've always been here. I went to university at Leeds Beckett in 2009. I studied journalism there. Wanted to be a journalist from the age of 10. Wasn't sure about what specialism to do, just generally interested in the usual stuff at first, sport, and then that kind of went into politics and did all sorts of stuff. Then once I graduated, the job market was tough. I ended up doing bits of freelance for various sort of free sheets aimed at the South Asian community. Before there was a funded internship at the Yorkshire Post in 2014, which I did. And then about a year later, they decided that they didn't want to get rid of me or couldn't get rid of me or whatever. And then one of the reporters actually left. And just as my internship finished and I took her spot, there I was, having done a year's internship on the business desk. I became a business reporter, and then I went and did some more qualifications, became a senior a few years ago, and yeah, the rest is history.
Okay, cool. That's useful to know.
Sorry, was that too brief?
No, that's fine. No, I don't need to know every single end and turn. That's cool. Yeah. That's not a problem at all. Okay. So obviously, being a reporter on the Yorkshire Post, I guess being a reporter just in general, it's really busy. I think before we kind of got started, I think you suggested to me that in your inbox you've got 2,600 emails or abouts.
I'll give you the precise figure. 2,306 unread.
2,306 unread. Okay. Yeah. So obviously, getting hold of a journalist's attention is something that everybody's trying to do, and I'm presuming that within that you've got spam from people trying to sell you whatever that we all get, as well as the kind of stories that are mixed in there that some of these could be gold, some of them are going to be awful. So when you've got an email that has got 2,300 emails in it and you're looking for stories, how on earth do you get anywhere with that?
Well, the way that I work is that if I see the subject line, and usually I'll be able to pick up whether it's just sort of somebody trying to sell me something or whether it's a story. So you don't have to have something specifically eye-catching in the headline. Just make sure it's sensible. You know, the best piece of advice I ever got was from Tony Harney, the former news editor of the Yorkshire Evening Post, when I was on work experience, which is, he sat me down, he said to me, look, you're a talented young man, but you're trying to vomit everything in the first few paragraphs. Okay. It's going to confuse everybody. So just imagine you were telling a friend a story, the story over a cup of coffee, and then write that way. So if there's a fire out there right now, you wouldn't say, oh, there was a, the leaves were blustering in the wind, all that sort of stuff. That would maybe be a while away. If there's a fire right now, you would say, there's a fire outside this location here right now. That would be your story. Similar thing for the subject line. You can put press release. That would probably work if it is a press release. If it isn't, then we're just going to get annoyed. And next time you send a press release, chances are it might even slip through the net because you've tried to pitch, you've tried to sell us something, I don't know, like used car tires or something, right, by labeling press release, and then the trust is gone. But you can label it press release, and then I don't know, if it's an acquisition story, you can say that the marketing optimist has acquired, I don't know, fish tank agency or whatever. I'm picking out names from the sky now, but that tells the story. Literally, you've just said marketing optimist acquires XYZ business. Yeah, I know that that's a story. I know that this is an acquisition story, and all of a sudden the gears start sort of whirring in my head as to what I can perhaps do with it. So okay. I quickly sort of, then I will be more likely to open the email rather than moving on. So yeah, that's how I would suggest sort of catching the attention of people. Keep it simple. That's a one thing that a lot Both sort of fully sort of fledged PR people and also businesses that want to do their own PR sometimes can forget and fall foul of.
Okay, and obviously with a ram-packed email list, and you're up against deadlines and phone calls can come in left, right, and centre. What is the best way of catching the journalist's eye? Because you've got email, you've got social media, you've got phone calls, you'll be
Yeah.
out in the street. What's
I can't speak for the entire profession because
of
every
course,
journalist have their own sort of way of dealing with things. Emails are usually always the best way because the worst thing you can do is to a journalist is like ringing him up when he's on deadline at like 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon at the end of a really long shift already. That's my deadline on a Wednesday because I finish at 3 on a Wednesday because I start at 7 in the morning. But worst thing you can do is sort of call at sort of 5, 6 in the evening. And don't get me wrong, your story might be good, but it might not be for that day, for that moment. For example, Morrison's could be in trouble. They might have issued a profits warning that day. Their chief executive might have been sacked in the morning, and we're doing like a massive follow-up, having spoken to everybody. And you're putting together the pages for both web, because now we have web deadlines as well around the clock. So there'll be like a 4:45 afternoon deadline. There'll be like a midday deadline. I think there's a 6 o'clock in the morning deadline. I think there's even like a 4 o'clock early shift for, the early risers as well.
right?
So there's deadlines around the clock, but unless you've got something like a really major breaking story, which is like Greg's favorite term, deputy business editor's favorite term. For example, you found out that, your business has been acquired by somebody and it's a really large deal, say, I don't know, £50 million or something. And you can disclose all that information. Then you would pick up the phone saying, look, I've got this story. You really want this. I'll email it to you. And then that's fair enough. But the idea that, you can just pick up the phone constantly to on deadline in particular, it's kind of the past. Having said that, it's occasionally is good to pick up the phone and flag it up, because if it is a major story, and this is where kind of you have to put yourself into journalist shoes, or just sort of kind of look at the story and think, is this really strong enough? Can I look at it dispassionately? And can I sort of contact the journalist as if I was sort of like a independent sort of arbiter of this story, and say, right, okay, yeah, this is genuinely a really, really eye-catching story. So let me pick up the phone and say to them, right, this is the story, this is what it means. The litmus test for me is usually, how will it affect other people other than those within my business, perhaps, and me? If you're creating jobs, say, for example, you're going to create 100 jobs, yeah, that might be worth picking up the phone to a journalist saying, look, I've got a great story, 100 jobs being created. It's in the former mining town, even better, because we've all heard about mining towns. All of a sudden, I'm kind of building a sort of a theoretical story here, but I'm just sort of giving you sort of hypotheticals that you could use to be thinking about your story and how you would build it out, if you get what I mean.
Okay, we just had a quick message from Nina, and she says, do you get many phone pitches still, or is it reduced? Do more people try to pitch to you via Twitter and LinkedIn?
Since we've been out of the office, it's definitely reduced.
Okay.
So we do have company mobile phones. Some of us are good at using them. Some of us are really bad at using them. But I rarely get phone calls these days, especially since we've been working from home. But we used to do. We did get quite a few phone pitches. Usually you'll get the stock response if a journalist is on a deadline. Just email me the information and then they'll pick it up if it's interesting. If it's not interesting, they still won't pick it up, regardless of whether you phone up or not. I've become quite adept at using LinkedIn to try and get stories. It's a sort of rich sort of minefield for finding good stories. But at the same time, whenever I put out a call on LinkedIn, I'll get a ton of stuff where people are just trying to sell me things, or trying to use the sort of story as a vehicle to sell me things, and it won't work. It just doesn't work, because I'll have a bunch of so many more interesting responses in my inbox that I'll go to, and then there's people coming back too late as well, and then I'll just have to turn around and say, I'm really sorry, you've come back to me. I appreciate this really fits the actual criteria of what I was looking for, but I was looking for that 2 days ago. so I won't be able to do anything with this, but maybe in the future we can work together. That's my stock response to people. I can't respond to everybody, so sometimes your message will just go unread or read but not responded to. That's not because I'm being rude or impolite. It's just, if I'm going through an email inbox of 2,600 and whatever emails it is, plus a LinkedIn inbox of God knows how many responses, it's kind of really difficult, and there's not enough hours in the day right now for me to respond to everything.
Okay, so you mentioned quite a lot of the times, you mentioned about lots of deadlines that you have, and that makes complete sense. So, and I know you can only speak for yourself and probably just for the Yorkshire Post as it stands at the minute, but does that mean that there's a good time for people to contact you and a bad time? So like if the deadline's 12 o'clock, for example, just do not send anything at 12 o'clock because it's just not going to get anywhere.
Once again, a lot of it's luck, because it depends on what journalist is working to what deadline. So one of my colleagues might be working to a 12 o'clock deadline because they've got a story that really needs to be up at midday. I might be working to a 4 o'clock deadline. So if you ring me up at lunchtime, I might be, oh yeah, sure. I'll be happy to sort of listen to your pitch. But once again, I think email, keep it simple, keep it sort of, the more information you can actually put in the body of the email, the better, really. So if it is a press release, quite often the really good PR people manage to capture a lot of coverage just because they keep it simple. They know how a newspaper writes. They know what our publishing sort of schedule is. They know what kind of, what we do in print. And usually what we do in print is pretty solid, and it can be transferred online as well. Online, we just add lots of things to it. And online has sort of kind of changed our publishing sort of modus operandi, as it were. We just, we try and get things up either first, or if we've got our own exclusive content, it will go behind the sort of paywall. And we'll sort of time it so that we've given that an opportunity to shine as well.
Okay.
So that's how it kind of works. I don't know. Did I answer your question? Or
Yeah,
did I ramble on?
Yeah. It's an interesting point you said there about PR agencies and how they know how to kind of write and craft things that come in. So yeah. Obviously there's some businesses on here can afford to use a PR agency. We do PR, and I know we've done some. I think we've done some for Russell with you. What's the kind of the balance between a PR agency and a business directly contacting you? What's the likelihood? Is there more? Do you think there's more of a spin towards an agency getting through, or do you think there's just as much chance of a business getting through?
There's just as much chance of, in fact, there's probably a better chance of a business going direct, because it takes, and we're human. We understand that it takes sometimes a bit of, it takes bravery. I was going to use another word there, which is probably rude. But, it takes bravery to kind of, make the approach sometimes, especially if you're like a small business, a one-man band, two-man band. Only problem is you can sort of say, oh, look, I've got this baking business. It's really good. It's really interesting. I've put my hands all into it, things like that. But if I don't have the time and the bandwidth, I probably won't be able to chase it up there. And then it might take a while. I don't know if you guys saw this. I'm not going to plug all my personal stories, but there was a story that I did about Bloom Bakers, I think they were called, last week. They contacted me literally about 6 weeks before that story actually went live. I didn't respond to their message for over a month. I fell ill, all sorts of stuff happened between then and where I was. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, it was in the back of my mind that this business had sort of contacted me. I wanted to talk to them because they had an interesting story to tell. It was like an online only bakery. So, how has the pandemic kind of affected them? Because they also did a lot of personalized work for corporates. So I contacted him several weeks later, and I asked, look, are you still happy to talk to me? I apologize for not getting back in touch with you. And then not only did we do a story on them, we went and sent a photographer down to take pictures, and we gave them the full sort of works, as it were, and a good showing in the Yorkshire Post. So there's no added advantage of hiring a PR company other than that they bring the expertise that they bring to your coverage and company. So they'll know how to craft a news story. Hopefully, the good ones will anyway. They'll know that sometimes you have to cut out the flim flam. Increasingly, I'm speaking to PR people who keep telling me that, we send you press releases, but unfortunately our clients don't listen to us when we say to them that they don't like certain things. So there's some clients who insist on having TM or trademark. Like, that isn't going to make it into the print, or the R symbol, or whatever. That isn't just not going to make it into the print, into our print edition. It's not going to make it online either, because that's just not the Yorkshire Post style.
Yeah.
We'll take a press release if it's really well written. We'll still have to put it into our house style. But things we look for. First of all, in the intro, just be clear. What's the story? Second paragraph, what does it mean, kind of thing. It's I think Nina, was it, who asked a question earlier? Nina will probably have heard of this. So who, what, where, when, why, and how.
Yeah.
Just look at, think, just ask yourself all those things. Have I covered all those bases? If you have, generally you'll have a really good story, and have some quotes in there. And then also towards the end, you just have lots of information about the company. How many staff does it employ? How many, what's the turnover? When was it founded? Who was it founded by? I was contacted by a gentleman whose family had set up a baking business, home baking business, and then I asked, okay, can I name any of them? I was like, no, we can't name any of them. So I immediately said to him, you're going to really struggle to get any PR coverage, because people want to know who's behind the business.
Yeah.
That's why people nowadays know who the business of who the chief executive of Lloyds Bank is. They know who the chairman of Sports Direct is. It's no longer just Sports Direct. It's Mike Ashley Sports Direct.
Yeah.
Things like that. So people relate to people more than they do with faceless businesses.
Yeah. Okay. And I think sometimes, because as you said, when we've done press releases before, you do get clients who we'll do the press release, we'll send it to them for approval before it comes out to you and other journalists, and they just don't like the way it's written. So obviously we write it in a certain format, and they go, oh no, can we just make it 4 times longer? Can we, like say, almost get a sale? I think one of the problems we get from an agency side is that some clients go, okay, so we want to do some press, but actually really what we want to do is we need to sell more widgets. And so they start off with going, we've got a widget sale on. And my job at that point is to go back to them and go, look, that's not news, that's an advertisement. So you need to if you want to sell more widgets, that's grand, because I know that's what everyone's after. We don't do PR just for the fun of it, and you get that. But we need to make sure that that's a story rather than just an advert. Because if they really force me and I send it, all that does is just annoy you and annoy the journalist by going, well, why have you even sent me that? There's no chance of me using it. So I think it's a point around clients understanding that journalists work in a certain way, and it's a mindset change a little bit for PR.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, that widgets thing that you mentioned. Oh, okay, we need to sell more widgets. All right. What does selling more widgets mean for your business? Is it just increased profitability? Maybe you could get a story in there about how it's targeting profits of XYZ through sales of widgets or whatever. But to be honest, it'll probably get pushed off the agenda very quickly by something else stronger. If you were to say, oh, we need to sell more widgets, and in order to do so, we're going to create 15 new jobs in Castleford or something, whatever, all of a sudden, okay, the XYZ firm is creating 15 new jobs. It means something to certain readers in Castleford,
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it becomes of importance to our readers more than sort of, this guy, he owns a tech company and he has lots of widgets to sell and he's looking to sell, as it were.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned earlier about obviously that cookie company that you spoke to, and it was a while you spoke to them. It was like 6-7 weeks until you actually put the story in. And I know there's a lot of people who would kind of go, well, can we chase you? Can we chase you? So is that a sensible thing to do? And I know you might get that a lot, because people might go, I don't know, people ring every day or email every day.
Yeah, occasionally it's, I mean, there are good PRs who still do that, and I don't fault them for doing so. And you know what? If it's an email, it's fine, because if I don't have the bandwidth to respond, I'll still be kicking it down the line. But occasionally it's actually a good idea just to bump it up so that if it has been missed. The key thing to be very careful about is if you're emailing me and a colleague of mine, make sure that, you keep track of the coverage, or you make sure that, both of us are kind of aware of it. Because sometimes I'll come back with a story and I'll come off holiday or something after 2 weeks away. Somebody will have emailed me and then followed up again on the Monday that I'm back in, saying, oh, you were out of office, so I'm following up for this story that I sent to you. I'll be like, oh, great, let me take a look at this. I'll go up to the business editor, I'll send him my list line, we call it list line, so it's just a line of summing up the story. And then somebody else on the team will turn around, well, you do know we ran it whilst you were absent last week. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, well, I've wasted my time trying to kind of, just put together a list line and a plan, maybe even done an interview, and then all of a sudden it makes me look bad and it makes kind of everybody look bad. So it's best to sort of just make sure that, because I can't go through everything physically, we have to sort of, that's why we work as a team, and it's not just a one-man band on the Yorkshire Post, because we file so much coverage. We're the only regional newspaper to have 2 business supplements a week. Right. That can go up to 12 pages at busy times. And we have a team of 5, which is pretty good for across departments. A lot of the departments don't have as many staff as we do right now. But even then, we have a city editor who has her own brief. We have a business editor, deputy business editor. They've got not just editorial stuff to do, they've got commercial stuff to do as well. And then there's me and Lizzie as business reporters. Lizzie works 3 days a week, I work the full week. Lizzie has a comprop brief, the commercial property brief, so she looks after that. And then there's John Granger, who joins us later on in the week. He used to do Yorkshire Vision magazine, but he's increasing, because we're not doing that anymore at the moment. He's doing other stuff as well. So as you can see, there's lots of different moving parts. But sometimes if you kind of if you don't keep track of your own coverage, or you don't sort of copy the entire team, and it can cause confusion, and it can lead to sort of, once again, a mistrust. Some people actually deliberately try it on. They know full well that it's been published, because the tone of their reply is, I know it was published, but maybe we can look at a different angle now. But you've just forwarded me the same press release, and I'm not interested in regurgitating the same thing. Our audience will pick up on it. They will literally, sometimes they write letters in, and it's hurtful to us as well, saying, calling us unprofessional or whatever. And they're right,
Yeah.
No one wants to buy a newspaper that's got a story that's already been, that they've already kind of, read 3 days in the same paper, essentially. Yeah. Or even online these days, they don't want to see the same thing popping up on their news streams. And worse still, if we publish it as premium content, which sometimes we do, if somebody offers us an exclusive, then our subscribers will be like, well, you're just regurgitating the same stuff. Why are we paying a subscription for? So that trust is lost.
Okay. I want to get onto a little bit of a kind of almost like a technical question, really. And it might sound a bit geeky and technical, but is there a best way to send it you? Because obviously press releases, the traditional way is, in the old days when you would have posted a press release, you put it on a letterhead, it's got a logo on the top, and it's got a kind of a ends bit in, and it would be printed and posted to you. Obviously now it gets written up in a Word file or whatever. And then we've got images and all those other things. Is there a best way to send these things to you? So is it better off not sending an attachment, but just pasting the press release, if that's what it is, into an email and attaching an image? Or should we link to an image, or is it just kind of, there's no rules, you're not really bothered?
What I would do is I'd copy the actual text into the body of the email. So you could, the funny thing is, quite a lot of the times this is where sort of some companies perhaps maybe spend a bit too much time policing their PR companies rather than actually trusting them to do the job, because the PR person will actually sum up the story perfectly in their sort of email that they've written, saying, XYZ company is growing, is doing XYZ, and these are the consequences of it. But then the actual press release will be just drenched in all this flowery language, state of the art, this, that, and the other, that you'll completely be lost. And literally, I'll be like, thank God for the actual email that you sent, because that makes more sense than the first of your press release. But yeah, that way, just think of it sort of as eyeballs. What catches the eyeballs more? If you haven't written the press release in the actual body of the email, I then have to go through another click. It's that, you know, how websites have to be clickable. It's a similar sort of thing. So just copy the actual story into the body of the email. Some people actually do that and send a Word file as well. I don't mind that. You know, I'll open the Word file separately if I have to. But having it in the body of the email just sort of allows me to kind of have a look at it, and attach the picture as a JPEG separately. If you've got a whole range of images that you want to share, fair enough, do a Dropbox, but still attach a couple of the pictures, because sometimes we may not have the time to go through a whole sort of, you know, download a whole, you know, a whole sort of like Dropbox of images and then go through them all. So just pick a couple of the best ones. Size-wise, you don't want to crash somebody's email inbox. So about 1.5 megs is good. A good quality image. Look, if you want to know what a good quality image is, just pick up a copy of the Yorkshire Post. Pretty much all the images have to go through our designer's eyes, and usually the main images are all sort of picture perfect or near enough. Obviously, not everyone's going to be able to do a similar job to what our photographers do, but there are very competent photographers out there, and there's no reason why, especially now with kit available, people can take their own and send them across to us.
And do you think, I mean, obviously we've had some coverage as marketing optimists where we've got potentially a better photograph than we had of the story. It was quite a simple story, the one we did, but we had a really good photograph, and you guys featured us in quite a, the photograph featured a lot of the page. So sometimes does a photograph help if we send a photograph?
Our plans are always, the way we plan pages are usually there's always a main image. So this is where people who read our sort of consume our coverage will understand better, and that's why I always say, whenever somebody rings me up saying, "Oh, I'm new to doing PR for this company, and I'd like to have a discussion with you," I just say to them, read every single edition of the Yorkshire Post this week. Start from Monday. Tuesday, you have the business supplement with the actual main book as well. Wednesday, you have style and fashion and all that. Thursday, business has another crack again with another supplement. But every single page in the main book and in our supplements will have a main image, and a really strong main image. And sometimes the story will be just like, you know, really quirky and kind of small and filler. And we'll even kind of design around it. Say, okay, we'll just put a little caption there because there's not much meat to the bone. So it'll be a little caption saying, you know, somebody raised money for, I don't know, you know, a high school fun day through a bake sale or something. Yeah, you know, I'm giving you a stupid example here, but the picture will be really nice, and then it'll hold a page. I think I know which one you're also referring to. Was it the drawing competition or something like that?
Yeah, we did the drawing competition, and then we did Yorkshire Day one. Actually, it was me and Chris who works for me, and we had like a thing outside the town hall where you could kind of see me through it, and he was holding it.
Yeah.
And that got quite a bit of coverage as a photograph.
So once again, it's, you know, it's unique, it's a bit quirky, and that kind of sort of thought, okay, we'll use that image. If you're honest with yourself, you'll probably say it wasn't like a groundbreaking story.
No, absolutely not. No.
So, but you know, the kind of image kind of helped it. I remember once there was a protein bar company, you know, one of those sort of protein breakfast bar companies, and you know, they could have just sent product images, which don't work for us, you know, and their story would have probably gone down page somewhere, or even as a sort of small nib. But they had this picture of this woman sort of covered in mud coming out of like this thing. It was an event that they were sponsoring, like, you know, one of those iron person.
Oh yeah.
Tough mud.
Yeah. So, and he was just really a striking sort of like, I don't know if anyone's seen Platoon, you know, where towards the end,
yes.
it was kind of like that sort of really striking cinematic sort of picture. It was like, wow. And we put that on the front page, even though normally we probably would have kind of tried to bump it down, because it's a protein shake company, you know, a protein bar company that's kind of launched a new product. But the picture was just so striking that we kind of went,
right.
That's gonna catch people's eye.
Yeah.
But we weren't like, you know, trying to sell the product, or, you know, misrepresent this sort of thing to the readers. We just kind of say, this is the story, here's a caption, and then the reader can move on to the next bit. You know, we weren't kind of trying to mislead anybody.
Cool. And I know we've done some video with well, you've done some video of me asking certain things. So
Yeah.
obviously the more digital angle of that, how does that work now? Because obviously there's press and then there's online and social. Is that becoming more so? Should people think not just the photographs but video as well?
Yeah, we think digital first now and then print. So
Okay.
literally we'll have, to be honest, they both sit side by side. So you'll have like, you'll be filling your pages and you'll be also do webbing stuff for online. If it's a breaking story, literally, you know, for example, I keep picking on Morrison's, you know, bless them, they're actually doing quite well. But let's just say Morrison's gets rid of it, or Morrison's gets taken over. That was actually a rumor a couple of last weekend.
Yeah.
Morrison's gets taken over 2 o'clock. That story, I'm not waiting until 4:45 to publish that. That's going online straight away, and then I'm working on the print version simultaneously.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of runs side by side. But our focus is on digital, and whenever we can add value to digital, especially to our subscribers, we try to. So I've played around with stuff. I've tried doing like kind of audio versions of stories. I had that little quirky kind of series I did, the 10 questions, where I think that's the one you're referring to, quickfire questions. I've stopped doing that now just because I don't have the time and the bandwidth to do that. And I kind of spoke to Mark, and Mark said, look, just focus on your sort of quality rather than quantity. So let's just, you know, if you do go out to do video, pick a job that you really want to be sort of, you know, you want to be smart on what jobs you pick. You know, visually interesting stories. Sometimes actually that's not always the case. Remember last summer we did the offices feature, you and I?
Yes. Yeah.
I had to kind of make you walk around corridors just to add
Yeah.
some and action to the story.
Exactly.
But there's ways around it, you know. Like I interviewed a lawyer as well a couple of years ago, and it was, you know, how can you make a law office look interesting? Literally, I was just having him walk around. I was climbing on balconies, trying to get aerial shots and things like that. And then just packaging it together because I want our audiences, I care about our audiences having a good experience online. I don't have to do it. That's not something that they're constantly forcing on us. But me and a few of the other people in the newsroom genuinely really want to sort of like push the envelope, and that's why we kind of do it. So if you are going to send in a video, just be mindful of there's a difference between marketing and trying to sell a product and PR once again.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a couple of PRs who have actually kind of cracked it. There's a guy called Mark Dexter who does a really good job.
I know Mark. Yeah.
Video, because he's a broadcast journalist, and what he does is he does news video packages. So he'll narrate them, he'll shoot videos, he'll do interviews, he'll have people stood on one side looking spaced, you know, rule of thirds and all that sort of jazz. And then he'll package them together. He won't drench them with sort of like, you know, logos and things like that. He'll just keep it all sort of simple. That's the way that it kind of, that I think that's the way forward if you do want to get video coverage in there.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm gonna open up the floor a little bit. I know Callum's messaging a question. Callum, do you want to ask your question direct to Ismail?
Thank you very much. Yeah, good afternoon. It was just in relation to, so I run a podcasting agency in Leeds, and I want to do more PR for it. Basically, I want to do more PR for the podcasts we make, because we make them in this region, and sometimes we've got contributors outside that region. Would it, in terms of angles, if I was, when writing, say, a PR article, would you try and target more the Yorkshire side of things because it is the Yorkshire Post? Would be my first question, in the sense, because I'm based here in Leeds, make that a more prominent angle, and say, for example, I've got contributors who present from Surrey and Essex, for example. Yeah. And the second question would be, which was the question I sent, in terms of, we do some more arts podcasts as well. Would you recommend sending them to those, to say the art reporter for the Yorkshire Post, or like the culture side of the Yorkshire Post, as well as the business side?
You have to, I'll deal with the latter question first. you have to think to yourself, what's stronger here? Is it the cultural element or is it the business element? I'd probably focus more on the culture side of it if that was the case. Always ask, how does this kind of impact the business? If you are going to target the business side of things, then always constantly check yourself as you're writing your press release. How does this impact the business? How does this impact the business? How am I answering those questions? Am I constantly keeping this press release on the business? Whilst if you're focusing more on the cultural stuff, then yeah, you can, I don't know, you might have like an interview with a former M&D elector or something. So, you can just focus on that and send that across to culture. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to receive that. What was your first question again? Sorry, I forgot.
Sorry, it popped into my head as Richard asked me, do I want to ask the question? But it was basically in terms of when you're writing and getting an angle for a story.
Oh yeah, the Yorkshire story.
Yeah. Would you primarily say, in that press release, it's produced in Yorkshire, but we might say the contributors that come in sometimes might be from Essex and Surrey, for example.
So one thing that kind of really bugs me sometimes about companies is that they'll write a press release and they won't mention where they're from. So you'll get to the bottom of it and then you'll read the entire sort of press release. It sounds like an interesting story, but they're based in like Surrey. Like, no, not for the Yorkshire Post. Not unless you're a major sort of like blue chip firm that's got, that would have effects down, say, I don't know, down the food chain or something. For the businesses. If you have a look at some of the way that I kind of write stories, I'll always, like in the second or third paragraph, I'll always mention where that business is based. So, in fact, I'll quickly bring up a page. Actually, I won't because it'll take me too long. But for example, if I was writing about Asda, I would say, Asda issued a profit. Asda saw its profits rise this morning, and it registered revenues of 28 million or whatever in the 3 months to July. Second paragraph. Leeds-based Asda also said that sales in its homewares division was boosting profits. So literally, I'm kind of using, I'm making sure that the sort of picture builds in the audience's head that this is relevant to them. So I would kind of look at trying to make sure that you kind of get that Yorkshire link in there early in the first 2-3 paragraphs, just because I always ask yourself, would the audience of the Yorkshire Post, why should the audience of the Yorkshire Post be interested in this? Yeah. And if after reading your first 4 or 5 paragraphs, there's no reason for them to be continuing to read, chances are, they will continue to read, and you'll have failed, and I'll have failed as well, depending on whether we run the story or not. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
That's perfect. No, thank you so much.
Cool. So does anyone else have a question for Ismail? Russell's waving his hand up there.
Hello. Thanks again to Richard and Ismail for actually having an article written by Ismail. So appreciate that. So yeah, it was a case of just in general, what topics or stories get you energized. So I know that you're going to be looking through loads of different lists, but as a natural human being, your head or your heart is going to sort of go towards one. So what topics and stories sort of get you energized or get you curious?
I kind of, when I came to the business desk, it was very much kind of, it was under the previous business editor's sort of tutelage, but he did a fantastic job, but we were very much kind of on the coverage. What I wouldn't say was kind of just similar, but he said that I want it to be more broader. So I kind of, that's my benchmark, but I'm struggling to sort of articulate that to you. I looked at that and I thought, what can I bring that's additional? And there's certain things that really kind of interest me. I've been doing a lot of stuff around employee ownership, kind of how business can be used as a vehicle for good. So talking about podcasts, I'm currently kind of in the tentative stages of putting together a plan for our own kind of podcast. to try and see more work being piled on me again. But yeah, I'm kind of trying to tentatively put together a plan for a podcast series called Business for Change, where businesses look beyond profits and look to try and drive, use their vehicles as use their business as a vehicle for positive change in society. So I'm interested in that sort of stuff, green tech. You know, we've done stuff on that front as well. A lot of the times, because I'm the youngest member of the team, the technology stories kind of get dropped on me, but I kind of I found my feet with that now, and I'm at peace with doing technology stories and covering tech companies, especially really complex ones. Thank you, One Disco, based in Sheffield. But yeah, I do have a general. The beauty of this job is no 2 days are the same. So I don't have anything where I kind of. It's a double-edged sword, actually, because that's why I kind of disappeared for 5 minutes. I do apologize to all of you. But yeah, I kind of enjoy the sort of variety of things. But I do have I do like businesses that go above and beyond just sort of profits or look what we've done here kind of thing. So yeah, those are the ones that really interest me.
Lovely, thank you.
Does anyone else have anything they want to ask Ismail? Oh, Jeremy's got his hand up. Go
Hi,
ahead.
Ismail. Yeah, so we lend money. So essentially, we're always trying to run a story about the client's success, i.e. we've facilitated a loan to them that's enabled them to create 10 new jobs or grow their business.
Yeah.
So on Monday, I drove over to Hull, where a cake manufacturer who you wouldn't know the name, but they supply other retailers, and that loan will facilitate growth, huge potential. So there's definite wider implications of the benefit of that. So we'll write up a piece and do a photograph and send it to you. And I'm always thinking, put loads of little paragraphs in, because then he can adapt it to the size and space and audience he's got. But sometimes I'm thinking, if I send it and it almost looks too good, it's like just copy and print. Is that too simplistic for you to do? Or is that like dream client? Because all I've got to do is copy and paste it in. So sometimes I'm thinking, have I overwritten this or have I underwritten it?
So I'm kind of slightly confused when you say, when you're sending stories to newspapers, they're using them just as you've sent them.
Well, I don't mind if they have, because I've written it because we're putting it out on social media like that. But you're going to adapt the story to your lineage, to your space, to your size, your column width or whatever. So I try and write it in lots of different paragraphs on the basis you can cut and paste those and edit it accordingly. Have the freedom to do that, as opposed to writing, as you said, splurge, throw up on you, here's all that, and then you're thinking, well, that's too short, too long. So it's how do I get that right to make your job easier so that you're more likely to run it, as opposed to this is a bag of spanners.
I think what your approach is right. You know, keep it simple. If you look at a newspaper, the paragraphs, everyone assumes that when you write a story, you need big chunky paragraphs. Copy and paste one of the stories on our website and you'll see that they're like one-line paragraphs, because newspapers historically have really short, sharp paragraphs. It doesn't matter if you're the Times, it doesn't matter if you're the Sun. The Sun will probably take the mick when they'll have like a 3-word paragraph and then move on. But it's shorter paragraphs, that's fine. We have something called the inverted pyramid when it comes to news writing. So if you think of it as a pyramid, all your sort of important information goes at the top. Rest of it is just sort of additional information. So the least important information goes right at the bottom. The theory is that even when a journalist files their copy using that principle, a sub-editor can come along and cut from the bottom up without losing any of the story. So always important information at the top, and, build it downwards, and then all the other sort of fluff, for want of a better expression, you can chop.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
To answer your question.
Yeah, brilliant.
Excellent. Does anyone else have anything they want to ask Ismail before we let him go? Anybody?
Alex.
Oh, I can't see. Is that
Danielle does.
Yeah,
Danielle does.
Shoot, Alex, there you go.
You're on mute.
We can't hear you, Alex.
Mute. Turn your mute off.
No. I'll tell you what, Alex, you put it in the, can you type it? Put it in the chat. A little bit delayed, but there we go. We'll put it in the chat. That'll be cool. Okay. Typing away. I think she's typing. Tagging on social, LinkedIn or no? So once we've run a story, once you've run a story, should we tag you in it, or should we tag you in prior to a story?
I'd be careful about prior to a story in case there's some sort of, they're working to an embargo or trying to kind of keep it under wraps. Sometimes, like, there'll be people who I interview and then they'll some people who do PR are quite weird with this as well, where they record what I'm asking, the questions and stuff. I assume that it's just for their own note-taking purposes, but then they kind of write a story themselves before I've even written it. And I'm just thinking, you've kind of transcribed everything that I kind of asked and just blown the whole thing. But obviously I'll work my own, I'll have my own vision for the story and I'll write it the way that I think. So be careful about that. But there's no reason why you can't say, oh well, I've been interviewed by XYZ, and we'll be talking about a certain issue, keeping it vague, and then you can build some anticipation for it that way. As for people tagging me, I'm really bad on social media, depending on the platform. If you go on Twitter, I'm bad at lots of stuff. Half my colleagues sometimes sort of like email, sort of say to me, you don't even follow me on Twitter. It's like, sorry, I don't even know how this thing even works anymore. But yeah, I usually just use Twitter for like talking garbage about the cricket. But like on LinkedIn, that works sometimes, tagging people in, it can't hurt is probably the best way to explain it. Especially if, someone's interviewed you. But do share it. No journalist wants their work to be just sort of sat there in a quiet, sort of dark spot on their web. Feel free to share it. Probably not wise to constantly spam them, like on the hour, every hour, like with a tag, because they might have notifications and then they'll just turn them off. But yeah, that's just be sensible.
I've got a question, just a really quick one, just about timing. So a lot of companies will want to write a press release and then almost like convert that into a blog or something similar and put it on their own site, and then try and go, can we send this to journalists?
Yeah.
Would you kind of go, well, you've used that already, it's already out in the public domain, I'm not interested?
It depends, because press releases are slightly different. Just because I personally don't feel comfortable kind of like demanding, unless someone said, or offered it as an exclusive, saying, oh, here's a press release, all information's there, it's an exclusive, and then they've gone and blobbed it on their website anyway. Then it kind of feels slightly cheated that you offered this as an exclusive and then done that. But generally, if you send a press release and you put it on your website, that's fair game as far as I'm concerned. I'm not that fussed, unless you sent a press release and then I've kind of rang up saying, look, I really want to splash this story. Can you hold it off going elsewhere? And you say, yeah, sure. But you kind of put it on your website anyway, and it doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay. Well, does anyone else have any questions just before we wrap up? Okay. No? Cool. So, Ismail, I just want to really thank you for your time. You've been, I know we had a chat before, and I know you've got a ridiculously busy day. Yeah. So I really, really do appreciate you taking the time to sit and answer everyone's questions. And I think it's been really useful. I know I've learned some things that are going to be really useful to me and our clients. So yeah, thank you very, very much. I really, really appreciate your time.
No, I apologize for ducking out earlier and delaying the start and everything, but yeah, now I need to go make sense of what we just spoke about earlier and sort that out as a story. So yeah, I do apologize, but if there's anything that anybody wants, if you share my email address, I'm happy for them to drop me a line. I'll try and get back to them when I can get my head above water.
Oh, not a worry. Well, yeah. Thank you very, very much, Ismail, and thank you everyone else for being on the call and joining in and asking your questions. I hope it's been useful.